welcome to the Diplomacy and Beyond Talk series. I am Afonso Morango, an intern at the Institute for Cultural Relations Policy in Budapest, and today I am interviewing Dmytro Tuzhansky, who is a local media expert and founder of Infopost.media. He is a political analyst and director of the Institute for Central European Strategy in Ukraine. Dmytro is a political scientist by training, and ever since his master's degree in political science and European studies, he has been professionally involved in three main areas: international relations, media, and elections. Apart from working as a consultant in the media sector, Mr. Tuzhansky has also been dealing with the issue of national minorities in Ukraine for the past 10 years. He has also been doing research on the world's best practices regarding reconciliation and togetherness. Dmytro has also extensive experience on assessment of the domestic and foreign politics, mainly regarding European and EuroAtlantic integration. Good afternoon, Dmytro. Thank you for this opportunity. And maybe we can jump straight into the first question, which is, what is Infopost's main goal and how does it improve both national and international dialogues, in particular with Hungary and Slovakia?
The idea of Infopost is pretty old, let's say. I tested it working with different medias, both local, national medias, and I have found and understood that there is a clear niche for so-called hybrid media or media in a crossroads. What I mean media which will be so specifically deep in the local issues. For example, in Zakarpattia region, Bukovina region, Odessa or Bessaraba region, as well as in Transylvania issues, or for example, Eastern Slovakia, or let's say Eastern Hungary as well. And doing with this, somebody could call low profile cases and maybe not so important things, but to explain the things and to think and rethink the things in these global contexts, and explain to a wider audience why it's so important, because why this niche matters. Because, for example, current Ukraine-Hungarian tension, or for example, let's say permanent tensions between Hungary and Romania in case of all these ethnic minority issues exactly, or Hungary and Slovakia, or for example, such kind of tensions in the whole process of reconciliation in the Western, or at least whole Balkans, they are based in such issues. Local one, maybe low profile issues, but these issues determine the global process, national process, and international process, bilateral relations. And this is the niche of Infopost. Our idea is to create a media, transborder one, media which will be deeply engaged in understanding and explaining local issues which determine national process or international context. And another idea of this media to be multilingual, to speak different languages, and it means to present very important issues, questions, topics for Ukrainians to translate and to present it to a Hungarian audience, to Romanian audience, and vice versa. So it means to provide the ideas and to provide narratives which are usually actually understand as a culture diplomacy or diplomacy at all. But I think that this case of diplomacy, when you should present yourself to the international audience, could work in different levels. I mean, you should present ideas of modern Ukraine, of Ukraine revolution, information about the war in Ukraine, yes, to explain why it's exactly a war, why it's not a civil war. And this is actually, right now I'm explaining the third, let's say, pillar of the info post. Yeah, it's countering disinformation. And it is very important because all these issues, countering disinformation, ethnic minority issues, and to speak different languages sometimes is uh, very often is used by different countries and different players in case of propaganda. You know, it was like more promotion. Let's promote our state. Let's promote something. Yeah. But in our case, we don't want to promote, I mean, Ukraine or Hungary or Romania in this typical way. So we are not dealing we are not dealing. So we are very careful with this promotion, because when we talk about issues, and we understand promotions as also of explaining problems and provide solutions. Take a look. So we have such problem in Ukraine. Yeah, I mean, weak dialogue between national minorities and state with national minorities. So, and we are not present the pictures. Take a look. There is no issue, no problem at all. We present this problem, present this issue, and try to explain this issue as deeply as we can. And we promote Ukraine or Ukraine Hungarian or Ukrainian Romanian or Ukraine Slovakian dialogue through solving problems, through solving these issues, through countering disinformation. So in our case, it's very important, yeah, for us, for our team, and this is a code of conduct. So we are not dealing with typical promotion, typical PR issues, or typical diplomacy. Yes, so we are the platform which should be the place of dialogue according so-called to Chatham House rules. Yes, when we are should be as neutral as possible. It doesn't matter which country you represent. That's why, for example, in our team we have people with Hungarian origin, Slovakian origin, who are speaking these languages, and who represents actually these let's say nations or like ethnic communities. So we are not just creating transborder and hybrid media. We also engage people with such expertise, with such roots, because for us it's important to be as let's say as clear, as honest, as and in good sense as strict as possible.
Okay, so definitely it's a very innovative platform with which acts in several aspects and issues, like you said. Uh, do you think that culture can be a tool for foreign policy? And if so, how and what could be, for instance, InfoPost's role here?
I could give you, of course, I agree, and I could give you a, let's say, fresh example, a very, I think, great one. So in Zakarpattia region, in Transcarpathia region, or if we use the Hungarian title or name, Carpatoio, lives one of the best Magyar or Hungarian writer who wrote a novel about according to this also it's about Second World War and the period after that, about Soviet army which came to Zakarpattia and for Hungarians probably. So it's hard to use because it was after war and during the war. So this is why it was in case of Zakarpattia, the word occupation could sound differently and difficult for different groups and for different countries. But it is a period of time when, so exactly after the war, Soviet army came to Zakarpattia, and what happened in that period of time. And that novel was translated in different languages. For example, the last translation is into Polish language, and it was the film made according to this novel. But what is strange, that despite the author of this novel lives in Ukraine, So far, nobody knows about him. Yes, and this is crazy. And but on the other hand, this is a great picture that in what level bilateral relations between Ukraine and Hungary is right now. What is the level of culture dialogue between Ukrainians and Hungarians? Yes, because you know, if you don't know, even modern writers who lives exactly near you, because Mr. Zoltan not, he is okay with ethnic Hungarian, and he's living near Beregovo, so in Ukraine. So he's Ukraine citizen, actually, and but nobody knows him. And actually, in Infopost, just two months ago already, less than 2 months, appeared a column written by Andriy Lubka, so Ukraine writer, popular one, and he uh, said that, take a look, I didn't know about him before the event he visited in Poland, where that translation presented. So did you know, or do you know about such a writer? And that column was and is still very popular. But what is important that after that column we received so many requests that, take a look, guys, because the Andriy Lubka so ended with the call to action. Let's let's organize Ukraine translation of this novel, because it's ridiculous that that such a situation could be. Yes, that person who is living in Ukraine have Ukraine passport, but is out of Ukraine context at all. Yes, but on the same time is very popular in Hungary or worldwide. And right now we are in the process of organizing crowdfunding campaign of collecting money for Ukraine edition of this novel. And we have already we have already people who are ready to donate. We have already institution who are ready to publish this book. So this is the example. We have so many things to do, so many work to do, because the real culture dialogue and interactions between neighbors are in a low level. We don't know almost nothing about each other. On the other hand, there is a strong demand to understand each other, and this is a good example. So Ukrainians are ready; they are eager to know about Hungarian culture, Hungarian writers, and so on. And this is also a clear example and a good and strong countering disinformation narrative that, take a look, it is impossible to talk about any humiliation of any minority in Ukraine, especially of Hungarian minority. There is no, let's say, matters or ground to speak about any civil war, because take a look, Ukrainians are ready to donate to create a Ukraine version of Hungarian novel. Yes, so this is how we do, and this is a great example. I hope it will be a success story, and we will share and present it already next year with a real book of Ukrainian, Hungarian, ethnic Hungarian writer about common history, actually. Because take a look, yes, still we have this Soviet version of history, but we all know what Soviet army did in Ukraine, in Hungary, everywhere, and towards everybody. Sorry. Yeah.
Wonderful. That's a wonderful point of view and initiative. And still on that line of thought, among all the components of the Ukrainian culture, which are the aspects that attract the public the most, both in Europe and worldwide?
Um, sorry, could you repeat, please? I
Among all the components in Ukraine, in the Ukrainian culture, which are the aspects that attract the public the most, both in Europe, like you already talked about some, and worldwide?
take a look. What is important to understand and what is challenge for us in Ukraine? Yes, to uh, clear and to present Ukraine culture with very old traditions, but very high potential to be modern, yes, to be actual, actually, and to clear it from these Soviet narratives. What kind of Soviet narratives I am talking about? So this is not about uh, Russian language and everything, this connection, but during Soviet period of time, it was also uh, cultural autonomy for Ukraine, yes. But what kind of autonomy? That you could be only Cossack, you could wear only sharovari, vyshivanka. I mean, it's a shirt and pants, very typical one, and that's it. So very this fairy tale like images.
Mhm.
But Ukraine culture, it's much more deeper, wider, diverse, interesting, yes. And this is a question of our literature. It's not just a question of Taras Shevchenko, it's a question, for example, Lesia Ukrainka or Ivan Franko. So very, and also on the other hand, modern writers, like I mentioned already, Andrei Lyubka, he's originally from Zakarpattia, and some of his novels translated in English, Polish, or for example, Yuri Andrukhovich, Oksana Zabushko. And what is important to understand that Ukraine culture and Ukraine literature, Ukraine so artists, cinema, it is a part of this European context, centrally European context, because we are talking about the same topics, about the same problems, the same challenges, about the same history. So it doesn't matter what you take. I mean, if it is clear, yeah, because if you take borscht, if you take something from cuisine, or if you take something from classic literature or modern literature, it will be the same context that you are thinking about in Portugal, Great Britain, France, Poland, Hungary, Romania. It's the same context. And what is important for us and for you, I mean, for Ukraine and for Europe, yeah, it's to create more context, to for us to expand and explore, for you to meet, understand. And for this issue, I think it's important. So English as a language, because we need to translate, yeah, as much as we can. Receipts, novels, articles, news, and info post actually about this. Yeah, so we want to present, and for example, in our this content plan, we have an article 10 writers, modern writers of Ukraine, which should be known worldwide in Europe, and we will translate in English, Hungarian language, Polish, so Romanian, so on. And the same, we, for example, translated the article. It was 12 Hungarian words which will help you to understand Hungarian culture. So these connections, interactions, overlapping, and so as much as possible. So we need to act. And for Ukraine, it's important also to clear and counter and let's say clear our culture from these empire and post-empire narratives.
Okay, then you've talked about Russia a lot. How would you describe the attitude of the European Union with regard to the Russian incursion in Ukraine soil in the 21st century?
Yeah, first of all, I must admit that um, we in Ukraine are talking about Russia so much, not because we try to put everything on Russian holds or shoulders, yeah, to transit this responsibility. The problem is for, in this case, and, what I see, what I came across traveling around Europe, that it's not for in Europe, it is something strange. It's not about us, as usual, to explain this reaction. So this war is not our war. This is to be short. But take a look. This is our war in Ukraine. And we understand this war, this aggression in the Central Europe as not just something unbelievable, but it's not just Ukraine case, because this is aggression about all the values which Western world is put on the basement of anything. European Union, NATO, and world order, United Nations. This is about this, about human rights, about sovereignty, about, you know, international agreements, guarantees, and so on and so on. That's why we talk so much about Russia, because Russia, organized war against its neighbor in the Central Europe, using huge disinformation campaign, use this narrative about civil war or protecting of Russian-speaking people. For example, it's easy to check. Just travel to Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, and walk through the Khreshchatyk, the main center, the main street. I was there a few days ago, and you will hear so much Russian language, and you will meet so many Russian speaking person that, and they don't need to be protected, especially by Russia. So because nobody attacked them, nobody, exactly in the capital of this, what Russia media present, the fascist of Ukraine or junta, all these crazy issues. Yeah, so it's important to understand that for Ukraine, it's not just trauma, it's not just emotions, it's the real war already 7 years. People are killed still, and for us, how we understand this, yes, it's our war because we need to protect and we are protecting our territory, but we want to at least empathy, yes, from the West, whole West, because take a look, when you talk about democracy, human rights and so on, you mean that it should be end just in the borders of the EU or what? Or where? This is our idea. So if you talk about this, help us, please, because our choice is to be the part. It's the historical choice. It's not choice just about modern Ukraine. It was a choice of before, after the First World War, Second World War. It's a choice of Ukraine nation during whole the period of its constituency and development. Yeah, so about Russia. So we are dealing with the aggression of Russia, of different aggression, military, information, culture, language aggression. Simple example, just it's not a question of the half of the year, but just few previous months, two top leaders of current Russia, Vladimir Putin and Dmitry Medvedev, wrote an article dedicated exactly to Ukraine about their crazy vision of unity between Ukrainians and Russians, about they present their vision of I don't know what, cooperation, one world. Sometimes they use like blackmailing of Ukraine. This is crazy. This is what they want from us. We are independent state, independent nation, but they provide, on the one hand they kill us, on the other hand they want to be one nation. But this is crazy. This is a clear paranoia and schizophrenia, and this is exactly what we are dealing with. So we have to protect, not just from army, not just from these hybrid campaigns, malign campaigns, hostile information campaigns, but also from the crazy people which are very close to that crazy guys in the Europe which started Second World War with these crazy ideas of some super something. This is exactly this. And for us, it's clear that it should be a response of the whole West. You should be aware of the people you are dealing with, the people you are trading with. And we also in Ukraine, because take a look, It's also important to understand we still trading, and we know this. Ukraine is still trading with Russia. This is the problem, you know. This is the problem, how to cut off all the connections with these crazy people. This is a big challenge. We need to cope with this.
Okay, definitely, like you said already, Russia's actions are widely regarded as a proof of impunity and disrespect for international law, and have raised wider concerns all around the world about its intentions elsewhere in Eastern Europe also. Besides, a Russian incursion into a NATO country would solicit a response from the United States as a NATO ally. Some say giving Ukraine a NATO's membership would be a logical step here. Do you agree?
You know, this is Ukraine official position. We want to be the member of NATO. It is in our constitution actually. But take a look. For Ukraine, it's not just about membership. Yes, in NATO, especially for us, it's a question of surviving. It's a question of guarantees. It's a question of protection. Because take a look, Russia is providing aggression, not just about Ukraine, or so on Ukraine. Salisbury case. Recently, it was burning in the Czech Republic, or killing people in Germany, or in other part of this EuroAtlantic community. It's not an aggression, it's clear aggression. So it's a question of how to respond. So for Ukraine, of course, membership, it's our goal. We understand that it couldn't be tomorrow or next year or even in a 5 year. We understand this in Ukraine. But for us, exactly now, military help, any kind of this assistance, and some guarantees, yes, from the West that take a look, you are not alone. And of course, we need this aspiration that take a look, make reforms, and you will be as soon as possible in NATO. And in this case, in case of integration towards NATO and changing Ukraine according to NATO standards, it's Ukraine's responsibility. Yeah, in this case, take a look, we don't want to transport responsibility to the West, that you don't want to take us to the NATO. No, no, no. We are ready to do our homework. Civil society will definitely make a pressure on the establishment. For example, right now, it's already more than one last year, but last year there's is a huge pressure from the civil society about the reform of security service as a key reform in the security sphere, not just in our way to NATO, but to protect the country exactly right now in the war. So I will, you know, so my position is to divide a little bit and to wide this question. So it's not just a question of membership, yeah, in NATO. Of course we want, but it's a question exactly of these long-term cooperation and guarantees, military and other guarantees exactly right now, because we have war these days, not yesterday, even not tomorrow, but right now.
So, like you said, the conflict is going on right now, and apart from the possible NATO membership, what do you think should be the next steps regarding the political environment between Ukraine and Russia?
Ukraine and Russia. So take a look with Russians. It's not so easy. With Russians, you couldn't control nothing. Especially, it's not a question of the people. It's a question of current establishment of Russia. It's a question of Putin and his country, because Putin state, it's a little bit different than Russia at all. We understand this. The only problem is that Russia as a whole support and provide legitimacy to this Putin state inside Russia. Yes, this is the problem. Yes, and so with Russia, you couldn't control, you couldn't predict. That's why you should be ready, and we are ready for the worst. Yes, and for us, how we could protect and what kind of support Ukraine expect, and what could be, let's say, a strategy. Yeah, so Ukraine should be engaged into West, I mean EU and NATO project as much as possible. Yeah, for example, I think when we talk about Central Europe, we should talk about, let's say, consolidation of the region. Yes, because Ukraine should be engaged in all these contexts of Visegrad 4, of Three Seas Initiative as a new platform, because it's not about military support, but it's a question of infrastructures, of energy security, and about digital sector. So Ukraine, before the membership, yes, should be integrated and should be provide this building bridges. Infopost is about this, is our title, is our motto, building bridges. We have to build as much bridges from Ukraine to the West and from the West to Ukraine as possible in all spheres. And in this case, it will be also guarantees because if it will be huge level of German, France, US, Polish, Hungarian investments in Ukraine, it will be also an counter argument to Russia that take a look. No. You couldn't provide so dirty invasion, so crazy war that you started in Crimea, so in Donbass. No, because Ukraine is in our team, and we will be together protect against all these campaign and reconstruction of this Soviet Union and so on and so on. And what is ground for this? Take a look in Czech Republic, in Hungary, and in Baltic states. Everybody still remember what does it mean to have Russian army in your streets, because it was in 1968, it was in 1956 in Budapest. So it was exactly during and after Second World War. So everybody understand what does it mean. That's why, to leave Ukraine alone, okay, could you sleep well after this?
So definitely a stronger and further inclusion of Ukraine in the European central circles, right? Yeah. Still on this Russian issue, last month, the Ukrainian president used his speech to address the United Nations General Assembly by criticizing the international community's ineffective response to the Russian aggression in Ukraine. He also supported calls for the reform of the United Nations itself, which he branded as a retired superhero. How do you think the United Nations could be reformed in order to have a more effective role on the Europeans' eastern flank, especially in Ukraine?
I think right now there is only one option, is providing the UN mission, military mission to the east of Ukraine. Yeah, because to really stop the shooting and so on, and it should be such a mission that it was in Balkans or in other places. Yeah, because take a look, despite all these political statements, war is happening. Exactly these days, these hours, shooting are not stopping. That's why this is the only option, because this current structure of the UN and position of Russia allow Moscow to block everything. That's why this is the only option with the mission, and I think Ukraine should probably demand and provide any legal or political ground for this, and that's it.
Okay, and speaking of relevant actors in the international stage, in one of your previous articles, you stated that the time has come to strengthen EuroAtlantic unity on its eastern flank. A new US-led strategy should be aimed towards redrawing the line between Europe and Eurasia, and to send a signal that the transatlantic community and the region of Central and Eastern Europe can be truly united, and that America is back. Do you think Biden's administration is a favorable factor to achieve these goals? If so, how?
Take a look. I really rely on and hope because right now everything is it's kind of hint this, that this is the logic step, next logic step, because Biden is pretty well not just like understand Ukraine, but know Ukraine very well. He knows region very well. I mean, Central Europe. He is real like Atlanticist, and his team is both Blinken and so on. They are also the whole State Department team. They have this European expertise and Central European expertise. The only obstacle right now is not even Russia, it's China. Yes, and China is changing this balance, and somehow West and the United States needs Russia to counter somehow China, because China plus Russia, it's a crazy duet for the West. And this is the problem, you know, because Russia are trying to trade and trying to ask, okay, we could cooperate, but give us Ukraine back, because this is our, this, I don't know, historical lands or blah, 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 all these crazy things. This is the all crazy issues that Putin and Medvedev wrote in their articles. And this is the problem, yes, of this. How could be done? How could be done that that integration, that building bridges, how it could be, you know, for example, we could start from the, for example, program of German Marshall Fund. Yes, it was it still is a program for Western Balkans. It was a program for Black Sea region, and it was the milestone and a pillar in expert and these civil society and political area to provide not a template, but to provide the platform of integration. So, for example, it could be create the same program in a framework of German Marshall Fund for Central Europe, because there is some problems with Poland, there is some problems with Hungary. I mean, not problems, I mean, not about these critics, but this is a little bit lack of understanding between Budapest and Brussels and Washington, between Warsaw, Brussels and Washington. And on the, it's kind of internal complaints and problems. And there is external complaints and problems because of Ukraine aggression, because this region of Central Europe has common challenges, trade, infrastructure, energy, the same. Because take a look, roads from Hungary, when they lead to the east, it leads to Ukraine. Russian gas, which is transported through Ukraine or even not through Ukraine, it's leads. So all the gas is transported to, not right now, okay, not the whole, but because we have Nord Stream and we have South Stream, but still the huge level of products which are moving, yeah, they are moving through Ukraine, with Ukraine, yes. People are moving like this. That take a look how many Ukrainians are working in Poland, in Czech Republic, in Hungary, markets of the fuel. So many things that connected us, gathering us together. So it's right now it's not a political issue, it's a logical step. Let's talk, let's create one community, one sphere, one like one region. Right now it's a one region because Central Europe is like incompleted without Ukraine, without Romania, and whole the West is incompleted without Ukraine. Actually, it's not my thoughts, to be honest. This is the legacy of Zbigniew Brzezinski, who is the great son of Central Europe and who is the super mind of geopolitics. This is his thoughts. The same, for example, the founder of Stratfor, George Friedman. His father is from Uzhgorod, and he was born in Budapest, and he established the biggest private intelligence company in the world, Stratfor. And his vision of geopolitics is exactly like that. That this is the logic step. So it's not my unique thoughts. I'm not so smart, but these guys already told this. It's time. It's time. Really, it's time has come. Yes, to do this, to realize this.
So, moving on, still a bit related to the Russian oppression issue, nearly 30 years after the fall of communism, Ukraine is still struggling to build a free press due to corrupt oligarchs and Russia. Ukraine's oligarchs continue to dominate the media landscape, creating a monopoly of information by a small and corrupt elite that uses the press to influence elections and, indirectly, access public resources. Meanwhile, the environment for being a journalist in Ukraine and Eastern Europe remains very dangerous. Since 1992, 18 journalists have been killed, imprisoned, or have gone missing in Ukraine. What do you think could be effective ways to tackle these situations of oppression?
Oh, very important and difficult questions. Question. Um, yep. Still, we have, you know, on the one hand, we really have and see the huge progress. For example, from 2003, before the Orange Revolution, and so far, yes, and even especially after Euromaidan Revolution or Revolution of Dignity, we have this huge progress because we already have few, at least, independent online medias. About TV channels, it's really hard to speak about any, but we have the reform of public television, yes, and it's still ongoing. So we have already few years a real public television without any control of the state, with different thoughts, without all these PR of the power. But on the other hand, we still have a journalists that are killed in Ukraine. So take a look. We need this oligarchization everywhere, in the media as well. But on the other hand, we really need, and I already mentioned, the reform of security sphere, because if somebody blackmail journalist or threat them, yeah, it should be immediate reaction, and even it should be reaction before somebody decide that it could threat journalists. So we need the reforms in both these spheres in the question you are so asking for, and on the other hand, uh, you know we need real investigation, because it's not also a solution to blame everywhere Russia. Of course, Russia has strong influence still in Ukraine. A lot of these guys, insiders in different levels of Ukraine state. We had real pro-Russian media in Ukraine. We still have. They are operating, try to hide their founders, but on the other hand, don't hide these Russian narratives in the news. Yes, we still have this, but I think we are in the right way. Yeah, and reforms in both this sphere of the oligarchization, public television, and the security service will help to jump to the more developed media market and to more safe media sphere.
Definitely, major steps have been taken recently, and for example, the Nobel Peace Prize was a very important aspect in this regard. On a different topic, how would you describe the recent diplomatic issues with Hungary and Georgia?
Interesting. With Georgia, I think it's even hard to find the closest friends of, I mean, as Ukrainians and Georgians are. But we have these political debates issues, especially with the personification of Mikhail Saakashvili. But I think um, it should be solved. Right now, it's a little bit mixed topic, but more internal, Georgian internal topic. And you probably saw the protest in Tbilisi recently in this regard. But what I see, despite this high level of political tension and political sensitivity, Kiev and Tbilisi are doing well, and negotiating well. I will happy to tell the same regarding Ukrainian-Hungarian debates, but I couldn't. Yes, so already four year we have a tension between Ukraine and Hungary. It started with this educational law in Ukraine and the question of national minorities and the status of Hungarian minority in Ukraine, which is very important for Hungary. But right now, this tension between Kiev and Budapest is about everything, not just about minorities, but about money, ambitions, expectations, and so on and so on. So it is right now very, very emotional issue, very, very political issue. And to be honest, currently, I could tell you that I am really skeptical in which regard. I'm very skeptical. Do that persons from both sides who are always talking about rights of any minorities or somebody or state laws, state interest, national interest, do they really speak honestly, or they just playing games? Because from my view, as a person who are studying these relations already 10 years, 9 years, I see kind of closed circle, kind of self-maintaining systems when different people from both sides are provoking tension permanently and try to get this political capital from this tension, not from solving this tension, but reproducing this tension to receive status, receive money, to receive ratings inside the countries, to receive ratings outside the countries, because it was Brussels involved in this tension, NATO involved in this tension, Washington involved, so many different actors try to manage and try to moderate this tension and this conflict between Kiev and Budapest, but nothing helped, because it looks like both in Kiev and in Budapest, they don't want to manage this tension. Everybody is happy with this because it helped them, in their political games. That's why very difficult situation, to be honest. But on the other hand, very easy to solve. Just sit on the table, start talk, and start to deliver solutions. All solutions are on the table. All solutions are in recommendation of the Venice commissions, or are in these reconciliation history and practices that Hungary, Romania, Slovakia, Serbia already did. So nothing really difficult, just deliver, and that's it.
Okay, and moving on to another hot topic, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky rode to power on pledges to clean up the Eastern European country, Ukraine. But the Pandora papers revealed he and his close circle were the beneficiaries of a network of offshore companies, including some that owned expensive land and property, for instance. What could this scandal mean to the future of Ukraine and its stability?
What is interesting that in the same scandal was our previous president, Petro Poroshenko. I mean, it's not a question of numbers, but the same topic, yes, about offshores and so on. And I think it was one of the brick that to his lose, yes, in the presidential elections. But in this case, I am not sure that this scandal will really influence the internal politics in Ukraine. And to be honest, right now we see and we observe that it doesn't influence so much. Yep, scandal is, everybody discuss, and that's it. No huge changes inside the country, no protests, nothing. Maybe it's not a time for this, because that scandal with the Poroshenko was very close to the elections. Right now we are in 2 years before the presidential elections. Who knows? Maybe it will also, this scandal will make like postponing impact, but right now almost nothing. Very smooth in Ukraine
Okay.
establishment, I mean.
Well, Dmytro, on behalf of the Institute for Cultural Relations Policy and myself, thank you very much for this opportunity. It was a pleasure, and hopefully we'll see you again.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for your interesting, deep and smart questions.